Hello and welcome to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be doing something I didn't think I would be doing. I'm going to be doing something I never thought I would do this season, and that is to explain why Casemiro and Bruno as a partnership kind of makes sense. We'll see. Yesterday, I was looking into, in the stats video, I was trying to do this whole stat breakdown. And one of the things that I discovered, of course, and looked at is that, which, you know, probably everybody knew to a degree, is that our defense is kind of bad. In everything I was looking at on the stats, I really do think United's attacking is quite exceptional. Their ability to create optimal chances and situations is really quite good, and there's really nothing that goes against that. However, it became really clear that the defending was poor, but not really at the same time. It's bad in a way, and I was trying to figure out exactly why, because United are a bit unique this season in their defending. They're kind of going against the grain of a lot of traditional ways of defending, and I found it interesting because I was putting a whole video together, and then this morning there was another piece that came out from The Athletic, and it said, you know, and it was basically about you know, defending and certain aspects of things like blocking shots and all sorts of stuff. And it actually explains quite a lot too, and ties into everything I'm about to say. What I noticed is that when I did the stats review, United conceded a really small number of shots. In fact, they've cut down the number of shots they were conceding under Ruben Amorim versus Erik ten Hag by half. Let's take a look at some of the numbers on this. We can see that shots conceded, they're down to 9.2 per game, which is really low. Anything under 10 is usually great. That's not even shots on target. It is just shots, right? But they've been conceding a whole lot of expected goals at the same time. They are 6th worst in the league on expected goals, among some of the worst teams performing right now from an expected goals standpoint. And one of the interesting things that I found is if you actually go to the distance of shots, United are second to last. What that means is players are getting shots on average when they're taking them in from closer than practically anybody else. You compare it to, you know, Newcastle, who have a good defense this year still, some of these other sides. It's 5 to 6 yards closer, which is quite big in terms of the average of where the shots are being conceded. And that makes sense. Fewer shots, but that's why we're conceding a lot, because of course distance from goal is a big factor in the likelihood of a goal actually being scored. Now, if we go through the games we look at the stats and how United are conceding goals and how this is happening, it's rather obvious. You have all these really far shots away, and the one goal that's scored is right in their box. I mean, like on the line, right? This keeper error, 0.91 expected goals. So again, not a lot of shots from Arsenal here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 shots, right as expected. But the one that's scored is right in there, okay? And so you end up conceding one big chance, and that's it. And you concede on that goal. If you go to Fulham, you'll see kind of the same. Look at all of these shots right in their box. These are all from corners, by the way. All from corners. And then a corner. And then this one is the goal that's scored with an expected goal of 0.67. So once again, a lot of shots really close. And the ones that are being scored are big chances on average. If we even go to Burnley, look at where the shots are. 6 shots total, but look at how close these goals are scored from. 0.51, 0.38 XG, set piece, you know, when the keeper drops it and all that. And look at those, you know. So it's just a few big chances being conceded is really the reason for most of the goals. If we even take City, they definitely got some more shots, especially as the game opened up. 0.32 is the one they scored off of. They missed a 0.93, which is kind of crazy. They scored on a 0.18 and they scored on a 0.42. So some really good chances in here from City, of course, but a lot inside the box. And again, a lot of big chances. We go over to Chelsea. Look at how few shots they get. But then again, boom, right there in the box. a goal, a decent chance. The rest of them, extremely low expected goals. So United aren't conceding a lot, but they are conceding a lot of big chances, let's say, right? They're conceding a lot of big chances, a lot of chances where you're looking at them and saying, yeah, like easy goal, right? And that shows up by the numbers. United have the 5th least shots conceded, but the 6th worst expected goals conceded, and they've conceded, 10 goals. So we're conceding a lot of goals that likely we shouldn't be conceding. A lot of goals that are big chances, even though we're not allowing a lot. Now, this is opposed to some years back where I can pull up the numbers for this because it's kind of embarrassing on that. We're at 9.2 shots per game being allowed. If we go to that one season, Ten Hag's second season, we were down allowing, here we go, opponent stats, shots, 660 shots allowed that season, second worst in the league. It was how many shots per game was that? 17.3 shots per game. It was one of the worst records ever in terms of shots being allowed per game. It was really bad. So, we've improved in terms of reducing the number of shots that we are allowing, but we are conceding really, really big chances. Now, it's interesting because if you look at this graph here, it's kind of wild. This shows that this is a graph which shows us at the bottom, and it kind of matches up to what we were just talking about. This is XG per open play shot conceded. So just to give you an idea, this is just saying if it's to the left, you're giving up better chances per shot conceded. And this is a graph of percentage of XG blocked, how many shots are being blocked. So teams that block a lot of shots are conceding much lower quality of shots. Teams that don't block shots, like us, concede really high volume of shots. That's kind of the trend of this, right? And that speaks to this data as well and kind of aligns with what we're talking about here. Again, United are not getting cut through. United are really not getting run through for tons of chances like we were in the past with the donut midfield. That's not what's happening. In fact, United are actually controlling teams and limiting their opportunities almost as good as anyone else in the league right now. But when we concede shots, they're wide open. We're not blocking any of them. We block half as many shots as anybody else. So even if we're conceding half as many shots, we're allowing a hell of a lot of shots that make it to the keeper or make it into the goal because our keeper is useless, right? So it's both of those things. So if you think about why, there's a couple good reasons for this that actually make sense. One is goalkeeper errors, firstly, right? You take Arsenal's goal. Goes right by the keeper, straight in on net. Nobody gets to it. Burnley second at the keeper. He drops it right in front of net. That means that ball goes right into the goal. Chelsea on the first one. I could say it's a keeper on their goal. I could say it's keeper, say it's not. I don't know. I feel like India could be coming out and claiming that. We need to do better on those set pieces because the Chalobah was wide open. But still, you would think keeper could maybe come out, make difficult, but he's rooted to the line. So the keeper is certainly a part of that. That's one part of potentially fixing the defense. But the second part is the midfield. Because besides those 3 goals, 2 other things that happened have opened the game up. And that was blowing coverages from the midfield. Smith Rowe running in a Fulham, earning that draw. Well, Arsenal keeper, Fulham Smith Rowe, Burnley, one of them was a keeper. One of them's just bad defending. City, the first opening goal when United were doing well was another blown coverage from the midfield. And this is why there's a focus on the midfield, because we can fix this, actually. We can. We can actually, in my opinion, by fixing the keeper and by getting this midfield partnership right, fix half of the goals that we are conceding, if not 70% of the goals that we are conceding, because they're big open chances. They're not situations where we're just getting played through. They're situations where we are really blowing it. okay? And that's not a good thing, but it also is a good thing. And I think I found the answer as to why this is happening in the midfield and when. And you might not expect this. You're never going to have expected me to say this, but I'm going to say it. It's the partnership in the midfield, and it's not Bruno and Casemiro. In fact, the problem that we have with Bruno and Ugarte, which showed up against City, isn't individually anything wrong with either of them. It's not that Ugarte is actually a bad defender. It is kind of that Bruno is a bad defender, but it's not actually that Ugarte is a bad defender. Let me give you an example. If you think about that goal, the first goal that City score, Doku beats Shaw. Where's Ugarte go? He goes chasing down Doku to try to block him, to try to make up for the defending of the others in the center back line, and the ball comes flying into the top of the box to Foden, who's free, who scores. Ugarte's ambitious, he's energetic, he runs around, he goes and he's aggressive in his tackle, but what he doesn't do is sit behind Bruno when Bruno forgets about his man, which does happen quite a lot. It's just a fact. I'm not going to sit here and hate on Bruno because I want to acknowledge the alternative side of this. If we can acknowledge for a moment, if we can just accept for a moment, okay, which I can, I'm willing to accept this because I'm seeing it, and there's still things I don't like about it, but I accept it. If we can acknowledge and accept just for one moment in time that Bruno Fernandes offers us a lot offensively in this system, which I think he does most of the games. When I've done the reviews, he's done a good job in a lot of instances getting the ball out and around in a lot of our better games. We're still a little bit live or die by him. I don't think it has to be Bruno in the long run, but he is offering us a fair bit on the ball. And when we get better and better, and he's able to attack more and more, it's going to bring more and more offensively to the table. I think we can replace him in the future, but if we accept this premise, at least for now, which is that Bruno Fernandes is offering a lot offensively, which I can accept, and that he's going to keep him as an 8 because he wants him as an 8 to, in the attack, move up into a space like a traditional 10 behind that front 3, moving the ball around, attacking the box. Things like we see in that Chelsea first, or the Chelsea first goal, attacking the box as an extra man that gets unmarked so that he can go and score goals. That's what he wants from him. And that he doesn't want him as a 10 because at the 10 you need runners. You look at Mbeumo's running. Bruno's never going to do that. You even look at Cunha's running, he's never going to do that. You look at the one touch from Mount, he's never going to do that. But the extra 8 can be that game breaker offensively to add an extra man that throws off the defenders even more and all of that. He can hit the big switch, the line breakers, the big passes, and all of it, okay? So I can accept the premise that Bruno Fernandes is offering us enough offensively to justify his selection. And we look at where he plays. Obviously, it's like all over. Okay? Not a lot in his own half, but all over, right? What Bruno doesn't do, what the trade-off is with Bruno in the 8, we all know it. We all see it. Everybody knows it. Everybody's saying it. No. But what Bruno offers is something. What he doesn't offer is defending. He will press sometimes well and energetically, sometimes very erratically. He will sometimes track his man, he will sometimes not. And he will let runners go, as we saw with Smith Rowe, with Foden, and he will not track them, and we will concede when that happens. The problem we have here is that, again, as I said, if you look at Ugarte, what does he want to do as a player? Which is his skill set, mind you. Asking Ugarte to be a sitting 6 is essentially asking him to do a job he's not suited for, and is part of the reason why I think he gets so much stick, because he's not a sitting 6. He never has been. He wants to get up. He wants to press. He wants to get all around the pitch. He wants to cover. He wants to go and press players, make tackles, win the ball high, and it's what he's good at. He is not so good at sitting as a cover 6. Enter Casemiro, who spends most of his time, mostly because he can't really run anymore, sitting as a cover 6 in this system. And frankly, in general, this is all he can do. So if we can accept that Bruno has, let's call them lapses or brain farts defensively, and he's gonna play, and that is seemingly the expectation, that it is worth the offense that he provides, but you don't want him in the 10 because you lose that pressure, who's the right partner? Well, again, if we go back to this, we can say that looking at this board and kind of what we would want out of it, he wants him in this 8 role to be attacking between the lines, to be playing almost like a traditional 10. Because in a regular system, even if this was a back 4, right, you'd usually be seeing it convert into some sort of 3 at the back at phases and build-up. You'd have attacking fullbacks, your front 3, you'd have your 10 here, you'd have a couple midfielders behind back here. He wants this 8 to do this. This is how he used Matoma. This is one of the things that Amorim did, breaking things down. He wants someone really competent in attack. But the problem is on the other end. When you drop back in defending, if we look at like what happened against City, for example, this actually happens kind of a lot. Bruno would be running around. If you look at even, I want to just actually draw out once again how the goal happened. The first goal from Foden, how it started all the way up at the beginning, and exactly, yes, why it's to a degree, it's just Bruno's fault and nobody else's, but also kind of what the partnership means. So the ball comes into here. This 8 is floating around. Here, let's do it like this. It's kind of like this. This 8 is floating around, and this 6 is marking someone over here. Bruno kind of dawdles off and the ball runs through. Now, United got back to set up their defending, but once again, what happened? Doku ends up on this side. Foden ends up over here, and Bruno's sort of a little bit lost, okay? He's a little bit lost. The ball comes over to this area. Ugarte comes out to tackle, right? That's the difference. He comes out to tackle. Then the ball goes to Doku, who goes by Shaw. Now, Ugarte comes and chases him down in the box, and Foden runs in to essentially score right here, unguarded. If this was Casemiro, you know what would have happened. Instead of it being like this, okay, Casemiro would have been sitting over here. Bruno would be sort of floating in this area, even if he didn't track his runner. Doku might have run in. It might have created a bit of more confusion in the goal. I'm not saying the goal wouldn't have happened, but Casemiro would have been sitting right here in the way of this because that's what he does. He sits. He has good defensive awareness too, but he's going to sit. And if you'll notice, the 2 goals that happened like that, where Bruno loses his runner, Foden and Smith Rowe, both come when Casemiro is not on the pitch. Because earlier in the game against Fulham, Casemiro was here blocking a lot of those kinds of crosses, those types of things, by sitting in the middle and clogging it up. I even showed in that game I was a bit frustrated that United had almost too many players in line, but Casemiro was often there in different aspects all along this line. He was usually there in some capacity or another. Not always in the right spot, mind you, but he was always there. So this is kind of if we accept that this is what Bruno is, which we seem to have to be able to do, then we don't have an ideal player because Casemiro's really slow outside of that. So he can't go assist. Our pressing isn't as good. Our running isn't as good. Our picking up chances, knocking out, chances before they happen isn't as good. But he's going to defend the box a little bit better and cover up for Bruno's flaws a little bit better defensively. That's why he picks that partnership. That's the reason. That's why it often looks so much worse at times when Bruno and Ugarte play, especially in a big game like City, when they're so competent at running around those midfielders that we don't really have a sitter So in years past, sometimes we'd sit in deep against City and beat them because they couldn't use that advantage in the middle. In that game, they did. So it's an interesting conundrum we have here. The most balanced and secure midfield that we have is Ugarte and Casemiro. We ran it in the Europa League and it was good. Casemiro to sit, Ugarte to go win the ball, pressure, do all of that. It actually balances out really well. You get a bit of passing from Casemiro, but you obviously lose the attacking threat from that 8. And I think that in Ruben Amorim's mind, he doesn't want Bruno in the 10, and that's not going to give us enough attacking to score goals because we are really good at attacking. And so right now we seem to be prioritizing that attacking and saying, well, maybe this is the balance we have to go for because there's no good partnership. And that's the truth at the end of it. There isn't a good partnership. The best partnership in the long term is probably something like Casemiro and Kobbie Mainoo. If Bruno wasn't here and you were trying to run this out, you would probably look at Casemiro and Kobbie Mainoo. A sitter behind Mainoo, he can move about a bit, but he's not having to make those gut-busting runs back all the time. If he loses a player once in a while, Casemiro can do it. You get Mainoo's qualities going forwards. He's very good in the final third. He doesn't have the range Bruno has, but he does have a lot of good attacking. He's competent on the ball. So Mainoo with a Casemiro replacement looks like the future. And that's obvious that we do know that. But it does explain why at the moment it wouldn't work. If you played Kobbie with Bruno, he'd run into the same problem that everybody runs into with Bruno, which is that you're going to need to sit deep to cover some of his defensive lapses and some of the holes that open up behind him. But Kobbie Mainoo on the ball wants to get forward. He wants to dribble. He wants to carry it because he doesn't have quite the long passing range. So then he's always going to have to be running too much backwards. So it's a bit of a Bruno conundrum. It's the trade-off of having a really offensive player in a midfield too that makes Casemiro very likely the right partner for him. But the long term, a Baleba or a Wharton or someone like that sitting behind Kobbie Mainoo could essentially be the perfect partnership where you get the balance of attacking and sitting, but with a younger Casemiro, which Adam Wharton is probably the closest thing to, but also Baleba can do everything and would be good in that. As long as Bruno plays, we probably have no good partnership because we have no 6 who can really do enough of the job. A sitter who, does all of this. A sitter who can lock in, behind but also has the energy to cover a bit more spaces. If we look at some of the names we've seen recently, like Yarmouk, he could do it. If we look at Yeoman, Sporting are a bit more dominant, so his heat map is more forward, but he does do this job really well. If we look at Baleba, obviously we're not seeing a ton, this season from him. But this is a role he can do. He covers a lot of ground, but certainly he can be a sitter. He can be whatever you might want from him. So we need a 6. And that 6 partner with Bruno would work. We know that. But I'm just saying this is sort of the reason why. What happens behind Bruno. And it is a trade-off. And in the long term, you ideally don't have to do as much of a trade-off if you have a different player in Bruno's place. But for now, it seems to be worth the advantage. And I'm going to show you something really interesting because I found one of my favorite stats that is so hard to use sometimes, but on occasion actually has value. And it's used a lot in other sports when you have subs in and out. And that is the on-off statistic. Over the course of a season, this gets really confusing. But in the first 5 games of the year, this is where this stat may actually be more valuable than ever. Because we've played only 5 games, and because Casemiro started most of them, we can actually see that when Casemiro is on in his 242 minutes, we've only conceded 3.4 expected goals. In fact, our expected goal differential is 3.4. We are creating double what we are conceding in expected goals when Casemiro is on versus off, meaning we are conceding a lot fewer chances per minute when he is on and a lot fewer big chances. Well, that matches up to what we looked at, the goals we were conceding. Smith Rowe, the Foden, some of the Haaland things that were going on against City, where we allowed them into our box a lot more. They happened when he wasn't on the pitch. And frankly, the same goes for Grimsby. And if you look, we've conceded a total of 6.8. So we're conceding fewer and creating more in this small segment that we have when Casemiro is on versus off. It's not really surprising when you think about the games we've played and the results and the outcomes, but it is true. So in conclusion to this, we don't have a good midfield pairing. Everybody knows that, but it is true. However, if we are persisting with Bruno in the 8 and saying that it is worth it with the attack that he provides, Casemiro is the best partner because he can sit. Now, we're going to see Bruno and Ugarte very likely on Saturday with Casemiro suspended. And I've got plenty of qualms with Casemiro, but I'm just saying stylistically, in terms of covering up some of the flaws with Bruno off the ball, Casemiro is the right fit for it. We'll see Bruno and Ugarte on Saturday. If we see that, Ugarte has to be the sitter, or we're going to see some of those same holes open up, or our press has to be really good and we can have 0 brain farts from Bruno. We'll see. We'll see. Can the instruction change there? Could Casemiro become a sitter? Can Ugarte become a sitter? Can we find a different balance over the course of the season? If we're going to persist with Bruno in the 8, that's what would have to happen. Otherwise, Casemiro will continue to be the right choice technically for that position. Didn't think I would say that myself. I didn't think I would come to that conclusion, but based on the look into the information and the data and what I can see, I think it makes sense logically, and really it just means we really, really do need to go get a 6 in January to get something better, because it certainly shouldn't necessarily be this way. This is not what we should be looking for in the long term. This is not what we should be planning for. And if we have to go through it the whole season, it could get rather rough. This is also the problem, of course, with Casemiro and Ugarte, is that Cabi isn't the best defensively. Ugarte, they're the same in certain ways. Bruno, Cabi, and Ugarte. They all kind of get up a bit more and tackle. Ugarte has more legs. He can be bypassed too, don't get me wrong. Everyone who is a high-pressing, aggressive 8 will get bypassed from time to time. When you don't have a sitter behind them, things start to get nervy. Now, can this be solved by center backs also stepping up? Can this be solved by our press getting even better? Can this be solved by closing the gap even further between that back line and those midfielders? Yes, that would assist in this. But for now, having someone who can sit and clean up a bit in that 6 role is unfortunately necessary. And the other thing is change the damn keeper. I want that, because that is half of the goals we're conceding as well. Half of the XG and half of the shots we're conceding are purely coming off of poor dealing with set pieces and crosses into the box as well. If we fix that and we have one of the players playing as a sitter every game, if we change keepers and we get one player playing as a sitter every game, I think we'll cut our chances conceded by 60, 70% with options we have now. And if we can get a 6, then I think we're going to get really good. So again, I saw really positive signs on the stats for attacking. For defending, there's concerns. I get why the choices are being made. There's no ideal choice here, but hopefully we can find some way to solve that with the personnel that we have until January, because we need to stop conceding so many goals if we're going to consistently win games, obviously. Okay, those are my thoughts. It's interesting. I found it interesting. Let me know if you find it interesting. Okay, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. See you in the next video.